Welcome to Forbidden Files Asia. I'm Eric. Today we look into a shocking case in the heart of Hong Kong, the Chungking Mansions hostel murder. In the summer of 2002, a woman was brutally attacked inside a tiny hostel room in Hong Kong. She was stabbed more than 70 times and left to die in a pool of blood. When police arrived, the crime scene looked like a sealed room mystery. The guests staying in the hostel gave statements, but all of them sounded suspicious. Some left Hong Kong right after the crime. Some claimed they were not at the scene. One was covered in blood. Another was missing. Was the victim really just an ordinary woman? Or was there a darker story behind her life? Today, we will piece together the entire case. The case took place at Chungking Mansions, located at 36 to 44 Nathan Road in Tsim Sha Tsui. The building was completed in 1961, with 17 floors and 5 blocks, A to E. The lower 2 floors are a shopping arcade, while the upper floors are mixed with apartments and hostels. Although the building stands in one of Hong Kong's busiest golden districts, right next to luxury hotels like the Peninsula, Sheraton, and shopping centers like K11, Chungking Mansions has a very different reputation. Since the 1970s, many units were converted into budget hostels. This attracted travelers, immigrants, and low-income workers from all over the world. The building became crowded, chaotic, and dangerous. Locals even called it the modern Kowloon walled city. On the morning of August 7th, 2002, at 6:10 a.m., Hong Kong police received a call from an Indian man. He said he suspected a murder had happened in the hostel he managed, called Man Wah Hostel, on the 13th floor of Block E, inside Chungking Mansions. Because several murders had already happened in the building within the past year, police treated the report very seriously and rushed to the scene. At 6:18 a.m., just 8 minutes later, officers arrived at the hostel. Even before entering, they could already smell a strong odor of blood. At the door of room 2, they saw dark red liquid seeping out through the gap. Some stains were already dry. When asked, the owner admitted he was too afraid to open the door and had not gone inside. Police then demanded the spare key. The moment the door opened, the smell of blood rushed out. What they saw inside shocked everyone. The small room was covered in blood. Walls, floor, and furniture all stained. Blood splashes reached over 2 meters high on the wall. Bloody handprints and footprints were everywhere. In the center of the room lay the body of a woman, face down in a pool of blood. Her body was covered with stab wounds. One of her hands was almost cut off. She was confirmed dead at the scene. To avoid disturbing the evidence, police called in a forensic pathologist. After examining the body, the findings were shocking. The victim had been stabbed about 70 times. Most of the wounds were on her back, including one deep stab that ran from her waist all the way to her tailbone. Other wounds were found on her head, arms, legs, chest, and waist. Although the number of wounds was high, none of them alone were instantly fatal. The cause of death was massive blood loss. This meant the woman likely remained conscious and slowly bled to death. The estimated time of death was between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock a.m., roughly 3 hours before the report. Forensic staff also discovered semen near the victim's anal area, suggesting she had sexual contact before death. But whether it was with the killer was still unknown. The chaotic scene suggested a violent struggle. Investigators believed the killer might also have been injured during the attack, leaving his own blood behind. Police quickly confirmed the victim's identity. She was Gul Amar, a 44-year-old Indian national and a regular visitor to Hong Kong. She often came on tourist visas, returned to India to renew them, and then came back again. On the surface, she looked like a tourist, but in reality, she was working in Hong Kong as a sex worker. She had been coming to Hong Kong since 1995, when she was 37. After several years, she became well connected in the trade. She even acted as a madam, recruiting young women from Indian villages. She arranged their passports, visas, and flights, and then placed them in hostels to work. At the time of her death, Goulet reportedly had more than 40 young women working under her in Chungking Mansions and nearby Mirador Mansion. This gave her an income of over Hong Kong dollar $300,000 every 3 months, or more than $1 million a year, not counting the clients she sometimes took herself. Because of her influence, she was well known in the community. When her body was taken away, many Indian women gathered on Nathan Road, weeping as they watched her being carried out. Police suspected that jealousy, rivalry, or disputes within the same circle might be the reason behind her murder. Because the murder happened only hours before the report, police feared the killer might still be inside Chungking Mansions. They immediately sealed off all entrances and exits. Everyone entering or leaving the building had to register their details. Detectives also started questioning the leaders of different ethnic groups inside the building. At the same time, they collected footage from more than 40 CCTV cameras covering hallways, elevators, and the lobby, hoping to catch a glimpse of the suspect. But the most important clues could come from the people inside the hostel itself. The Manhua hostel had 5 rooms. Room 2 was where the victim, Goulet Amar, stayed with her roommate, Carr. On the night of the crime, 4 of the 5 rooms were occupied. Police interviewed the guests one by one. Room 1 was occupied by Syed, an Indian man. He said he went to sleep early, but was woken around 2:30 to 3 a.m. by loud noises. He clearly heard a woman shouting in Hindi, "I'm being beaten. I'm going to be killed." He then heard banging noises from room 2. A male voice in Hindi asked what was happening, and another man replied in English, "No problem." The woman kept screaming, but the voice grew weaker and finally stopped. Syed said such disturbances were common in Chungking Mansions, so he ignored it and went back to sleep until police woke him in the morning. Room 2 was the victim's room. Her roommate Carr was not present when police arrived. Later, she was found in another hostel. She appeared shocked when told of the murder and insisted she was not at the scene. Room 3 was rented by 3 Bangladeshi men, but only one, Razak, remained after the crime. He said that around 3 a.m., he also heard a woman screaming in room 2. He knocked on the door and asked what was going on. A woman's voice answered, "Nothing." He went back to his room. 5 to 10 minutes later, he again heard the woman shouting, "I'm being beaten. I'm going to be killed." Then silence. Around 4 a.m., his 2 roommates left hurriedly for the airport. Razak stayed and returned to the room around 5 a.m. Room 4 was occupied by Singh, an Indian man who also worked as the caretaker of the hostel. He was responsible for checking guests in and out, collecting payments, and helping with small tasks. Singh claimed that on the night of the crime, he and Kaur were at another hostel, New Manhua Hostel, on the 8th floor of Block A, and that he knew nothing about what happened in room 2. But Singh also mentioned something strange. The day before, a Bangladeshi man had checked into the hostel, but on the night of August 6th, he disappeared with his luggage without formally checking out. When Singh checked the registration book, his details had been crossed out with a pen, leaving no record. Room 5 was empty that night. The person who had stayed there was the same Bangladeshi man Singh said had vanished with his luggage. After hearing all these statements, police realized that almost every room contained suspicious details. Some guests had left Hong Kong, some were missing, and others had given questionable stories. Then, police turned to the CCTV footage, and this changed everything. The tapes showed that Singh and Kaur's alibi was false. They had claimed to be asleep in New Manwha hostel at the time of the murder. But cameras revealed otherwise. At 3:41 a.m., Singh was seen in the elevator of Block A, together with another Indian man whose clothes were covered in blood. They returned to the 8th floor, where the New Manwha hostel was located. Later, at 4:56 a.m., Singh appeared again, this time in Block E, taking the elevator back up to the 13th floor of Manwha hostel with another Indian man. Soon after, Singh was seen leading Kaur out of Block E and back into Block A. Later, cameras showed Singh, Kaur, the blood-stained man now wearing clean clothes, and the hostel owner all returning to Block E together. Not long after, the owner called the police to report the crime. The CCTV proved Singh and Kaur had lied. They were not asleep in Block A. They were moving back and forth between the hostels and were with a man covered in blood. Their testimonies collapsed, and the investigation took a dramatic turn. After being confronted with the CCTV footage, Singh and Kaur were taken back to the station. Their alibis no longer stood. Singh finally changed his story and revealed what really happened that night. He said the blood-stained man was Harmanpreet, his friend, and a helper at both Manwha and New Manwha hostels. Preet had only arrived in Hong Kong from India on August 1st, just 6 days before the murder. According to Singh, Preet killed Gulay to avenge Kaur. Singh explained that Kaur had not come to Hong Kong willingly. She was lured by Gulay with the promise of a good job. Gulay even advanced money for her passport, visa, and airfare. But when Kaur arrived, she learned there was no such job. Instead, Gulay forced her into sex work, taking away her passport so she could not escape. When Preet heard this, he became furious. Singh said that in the early hours of August 7th, he heard loud shouting from Loom 2. Gulay was screaming his name, begging for help. "Singh, I'm being beaten. I'm going to be killed." Singh approached the door, but Preet shouted from inside, threatening to kill both Singh and Kaur if he interfered. Terrified, Singh said he backed away and waited on the staircase. 15 to 20 minutes later, Preet came out. His right hand was injured, and his clothes were soaked in blood. He told Singh to go with him to New Manwha hostel to change clothes. Later, Singh returned to Manwha hostel to send off 2 Bangladeshi guests for room 3 who had a flight to catch. With this statement, Preet became the prime suspect in the murder investigation. Police widened their search and alerted all border checkpoints with Preet's details. Fortunately, his circle in Hong Kong was small, and he was still inside Chungking Mansions. That same night, officers located and arrested him. Forensic tests confirmed the worst. The semen found in Gul's body matched Preet's DNA. The 2 knives carried Preet's DNA as well, and their shapes matched the victim's wounds. With all this evidence, investigators were now confident Preet was directly linked to the crime. Preet was charged with murder. His request for bail was denied, and he was held in custody awaiting trial. But just 1 month later, on September 9th, 2002, he shocked everyone by attempting a prison escape. During exercise time, he suddenly climbed up a 16-foot fence, leaped across to a nearby 18-foot lamppost, and slid down, trying to flee. Guards quickly spotted him, and the attempt failed. For this act, Preet was given an additional 2-month sentence on top of the murder charge. Even before trial, he was already labeled as an escapee. After more than a year of investigation, the case finally went to trial in early 2004. First was the caretaker, Singh. He was charged with obstructing justice by helping Preet avoid arrest. Singh eventually pleaded guilty, admitting he had lied and concealed the truth. As for Harmanpreet, now 18 years old, he faced a murder charge. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Preet repeatedly broke down in court, shouting that he had not killed Gule and insisting she was like a mother to him. But after hearing weeks of testimony, the 7-member jury, 4 women and 3 men, took 5.5 hours to deliberate. They returned with a 6-1 verdict, guilty of murder. The judge sentenced Preet to life imprisonment with a minimum of 25 years before eligibility for review or parole. His lawyer later requested that he be allowed to serve his sentence in India, since he had no family in Hong Kong and struggled with language barriers. But because Hong Kong and India had no prisoner transfer agreement, the request was denied. Preet later appealed, and the minimum term was reduced from 25 years to 20. In theory, he could apply for parole in 2022 at the age of 37. But fate decided otherwise. On July 3, 2014, after 12 years behind bars, Preet ended his own life with a bedsheet. He was only 29 years old. From 17 at the time of the crime to his final day in prison, his youth was gone. The Chungking Mansions hostel murder was shocking, not only for its brutality, but also for how the truth slowly unfolded. From conflicting witness testimonies, to CCTV footage exposing lies, to forensic evidence linking the suspect. Chungking Mansions has always been a place of contrast. Luxury hotels and shopping centers nearby, yet inside, a world of migrants, illegal trades, and hidden stories. This case was one of the darkest of them all.